So, what happens when a White House is announcing these huge, historic policy wins, but at the exact same time, it's warning everyone about a government in crisis? Well, that's exactly what we saw this past week. We're going to break down this really fascinating strategy from a massive trade deal with China all the way to absolute chaos at our airports. The week really kicked off with a bang. The White House rolled out what it called a landmark trade deal with China. They were hailing it as this, historic moment that would completely rebalance the economic power between the two biggest players on the world stage. But it wasn't all about global politics. No, they had a message for folks back home too. And it was pretty simple. Your Thanksgiving dinner is about to get a little cheaper. A brand new report showed the cost for that classic holiday meal was actually down 3% from last year. And then there was this one, a huge headline for a lot of people, a deal with the big drug companies to bring down the cost of really popular medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. They even gave it a name, Trump RX, and it promised to just slash those monthly prices. I mean, look at those numbers. So let's just take a step back. You've got this trifecta of big announcements, right? A foreign policy win, a win for your wallet at the grocery store, and a win on healthcare costs. This wasn't just a random stream of good news. It was all part of a very deliberate message to project strength, action, and, well, results. And when you dig into that China deal, you see just how broad it was. I mean, this wasn't just about tariffs. It covered everything from tackling the fentanyl crisis to getting access to critical minerals we need for our tech, and of course, opening up big new markets for American farmers. The administration was really framing this as a total reset of the relationship. And on the Thanksgiving front, they didn't just stop with that 3% number. Oh no, they got specific. They pointed out these really big price drops on individual items. We're talking a 22% drop for dinner rolls, 15% for frozen vegetables. It makes that saving feel a lot more real when you're pushing a cart down the aisle. So this whole week of wins was kind of wrapped up with a bow during this big TV interview. The president just summed it all up with a whole lot of confidence, basically framing this whole period as one of the most successful runs ever for an administration. But, and this is a big but, that is only half the story. Because while the White House was taking these victory laps, they were also sounding the alarm about a crisis. A crisis that, funny enough, they were actually pretty eager to talk about. Every single press release, every fact sheet, every announcement about those policy wins we just talked about, from China to drug prices, it was all stamped with this banner. It was this constant ticking clock, a reminder that while all this good stuff was happening, the government itself was partially shut down. The message on the shutdown was consistent, and it was direct. Basically, we're over here getting things done, and our political opponents are the ones holding the country back. This set up this really powerful contrast, right? You have accomplishment on one side and obstruction on the other. And make no mistake, this contrast was not an accident. It was the core of their whole communication strategy for the week, a strategy they actually laid out in this really detailed document that was all about connecting their actions today directly back to the campaign trail. So the White House puts out this promises kept list. The formula is super simple. State a promise that was made during the campaign, and then right below it, put a big green check mark and describe the action that was taken. So here, a promise to close the border is linked directly to what they're calling historic lows in illegal crossings. And they use the exact same playbook for economic policy. A promise for big tax cuts for workers, getting specific about no tax on tips, was then tied directly to a law they framed as the biggest tax cut ever for working families. It's a very clear attempt to show voters, hey, you elected us to do this, and we did it. You see the pattern here, right? Same thing for energy. You have the famous campaign slogan, drill, baby, drill. And then, check mark, here's the result, record level U.S. oil and gas production. The message couldn't be clearer. You asked for it, we delivered. But this is where it gets really interesting, because while the White House was celebrating all these promises it kept, it was also putting a spotlight on the very real, very painful consequences of the government shutdown. And they were not shy about the details. In one release, the administration spelled out exactly what this meant for travelers. They pointed to TSA wait times just exploding, up to 5 hours at major airports like Houston's George Bush Intercontinental. Can you imagine? 5 hours! And the picture they painted was just one of total chaos across the country's airports. Severe staffing shortages, delays causing ripple effects everywhere, major disruptions in almost every big city you can think of, and a huge economic cost. all while essential workers like TSA agents and air traffic controllers were on the job but not getting paid. And of course, every single detail of this travel nightmare was presented right alongside that same persistent banner. The takeaway they wanted you to have was crystal clear. If you're stuck in that 5-hour security line, we want you to know exactly who we think you should blame. So, what does this all add up to? Well, you've got a week that was defined by two powerful and, frankly, conflicting narratives. And the weirdest part, both of them were being pushed and pushed hard from the very same source, the White House. I mean, think about it. On one hand, you have this story of incredible success, of nonstop action. Historic deals are getting done, prices are coming down for regular people, and promises are being kept. But at the exact same time, there's this parallel story of crisis and chaos, where basic government services are failing and life for a lot of Americans is getting seriously disrupted. This whole strategy just leaves us with a really fundamental question. In a world where the official message is one of triumph and turmoil, of incredible achievement and complete breakdown, how are we even supposed to figure out what's really going on? It really makes you wonder which one of those stories is supposed to be the headline and which one is just the fine print.